Yeah.
Welcome back to Clinical Psychology Community UK. My name is Holly and I am a second year trainee clinical psychologist. I've spent quite a lot of time reflecting on the last year because it's just absolutely flown by. The first year of training has flown. I don't know where it's gone. And I put a call out on the Instagram page. If you don't follow us already, make sure you do. The tag is somewhere on the screen. Make sure that you follow us for monthly Q&As. I do book reviews, some general kind of DClin updates, and also some wider information about clinical psychology. So I put a call out on Instagram asking for questions about the first year of the DClin and preparing for the DClin, and you guys gave me loads and loads and loads. So thank you so much to everyone that gave me some questions. I've planned some responses, so we'll go through them, and I've split them up into categories. So we've got 6 categories. So hopefully you can use the little buttons below to skip to the one that you think it might be most useful. So the first category is placements. Then we have teaching, academic, research, wellbeing, and general. So we'll get straight into it. So the first question that I had about placements was, did you have any choice over your first year placements, or was it picked randomly? So on my course, we do a training and needs kind of aspirations assessment, which covers pre-training and on-training experiences. So it's something that we did before training started, to just go through the experiences that we'd had and what our aspirations were for our career and for training. And then we did it again. I've just done it at the end of first year alongside my annual appraisal as well. So it includes what we want to do on training, but also the short-term and long-term aspirations and interests. So I put down that I have experience in, but also want more training experience of, clinical health psychology, and I got health placements. So for my first placement, my working age placement, I was working in a pain service, and my older adult placement was kind of split between 2 services. So I split between an older adult CMHT, community mental health team, and a service that cares for people with anxiety and depression alongside physical health conditions that limit them. So there was a lot of health stuff there, which is really good. And I was happy with what I got. And actually for my second year placement, I've also got another health one, so I'm pretty happy. But there is no list of placements that we can choose from in years 1 and 2. I gather for third year there's a bit more flexibility and choice. So the placement allocations in first year are reportedly based on your needs and aspirations. And in my cohort, that does seem to have been the case. People generally have been placed in places where they haven't had experience. The next question I had about placements was, how do you stay reflective on placements and in teaching sessions? Is there a particular technique that works for you? Well, honestly, supervision has been the place where I've been most reflective, I think. It did take some time to feel comfortable to do this with another person, because previously I was using kind of reflective models and writing it down, and it was very personal. But it did take some time to feel comfortable to do that with someone else, and let alone someone who ultimately is going to be determining whether you pass or fail the placement. That felt somewhat of a risk in some ways. So but generally it's been supervision. And in terms of a technique, I have used a couple of reflective models at times when there's something perhaps that isn't sitting right and I really want that structured approach to it. But usually in a way that it would help me formulate what I want to say and how I feel about it before I go to supervision. But really, prepping for supervision, even without a reflective model, has been really helpful. I make sure I take some time, even if it's only 15 minutes or so, just to really think about what I want to talk about in supervision. And for me, it's been really helpful. So I've been taking the supervision notes during supervision. So what's been really helpful is setting up that template, writing down what I want to say first, and then typing in the conversation that we have. That's been really helpful. But I think reflection is such a broad topic, and I also do a lot of informal reflection. So I will spend a lot of time, if I've had a day where something's been a bit difficult or something's kind of stayed with me or made me want to think about it, then I'll have a think about it in the car on the way home. I might put on some nice chilled music and just go through what happened and how I feel about it, and what sorts of things I might say to my supervisor about it, or things like that. And I think that informal reflection, just time to be with yourself and think about how you feel, is really important. Firstly, what has teaching been like, and has it been what you expected? If I'm really honest, teaching's been mixed. Some days are fantastic and inspiring and exciting. Some topics don't elicit that response in me. We can't be interested in everything. Some of the things that I'm so interested in, the teaching's been fab and it's been really engaging. But generally, the things that I'm perhaps not so interested in, or where the teaching's just not quite hit the mark for me, or it's just some of the exercises we do just aren't as engaging. It's just like any other teaching that you've had, really. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to engage in, especially when you've got lots of deadlines around and pinch points and corrections to do and things like that. It's definitely been true over the first year, because we've had to have, ideally you would have all your 3 research projects approved in the first year so you can go on and do them in the second and third years. But that's not always possible, and sometimes teaching feels a little bit like it gets in the way, like you just want to have a few more study days. But generally I think teaching has been what I expected it to be, and it's been mixed. I'd be lying if I said every day was amazing, because it isn't. Like, not every day of every job is amazing. The only question I had for academic is it demanding academically? The academic side of things has actually been more manageable than I thought it would be. I think that's to do with my expectations of the course, like being impossibly hard and challenging, and being, I just wasn't going to be able to cope with it, is what my expectations were. And I was actually surprised that it was manageable. It's almost like they want you to pass. They do want you to pass. They obviously want you to do really well. There have been a lot of things, and it's a lot to juggle, but it's that in my experience, they haven't been things that I've had no idea where to start with. You come to training with experience, and that in whatever form that comes, whether that's clinical or research or whatever it is, you will have had some form of experience, and drawing on that experience is really important. So in terms of academics this year, we have been doing a foundation course in systemic psychotherapy, so that's optional, and that involved 3 different assignments, and they change every year on my course, but the 3 assignments we had was keeping a reflexive log about anything, so it was kind of at least 1 monthly entry about anything, and it didn't inform whether we passed the foundation year or not, so it was just one of those things that we did. Then we had to do an interview with a non-clinical family, where we drew up a genogram with the family, and then kind of we wrote an account of that interview and reflection on it. Again, that didn't really inform whether we passed or not, so we did get comments on it and it was useful, but it wasn't one of those things that informed whether we passed. So the one assignment that kind of did, it was the basis of whether we passed the foundation year or not, was a theoretical essay, where we had a choice of essay questions, and I can't remember how many words it was, but it wasn't long. It was only like, I want to say like 2,000 or 3,000 words. I can't remember off the top of my head. So it wasn't. It was actually hard because it was so small. It was tough. But it's just like any other kind of essay thing, really. So it's very doable. The other academic assignment we had this year was our extended essay. So we get given titles for essays, a choice of titles, at 9 a.m. on day 1, and we have to submit it by 5 p.m. on day 2. So the idea is for it to kind of replicate, we might be given 2 days to write a report, or 2 days to prep some CPD training or something, while working as a clinical psychologist. So the titles were related to topical issues in psychology and how clinical psychologists can help or contribute to a solution generally. And it was kind of, again, very manageable. Very manageable. And the way that the academics work, the way that all assignments work on training is, on my course anyway, you pass unconditionally, which is great, but doesn't always happen. I have passed something unconditionally this year, which is great. But more commonly, you're going to get passed with minor corrections. In my course, that gives you 2 weeks to make the changes that have been suggested and resubmit it. And then you can have pass with, so I've had a couple of those as well. Then you can have pass with major corrections. So that gives you 6 weeks on my course to just do those changes. And I've had one of those as well. And then you have a fail. So if you don't pass, luckily I haven't had any of those just yet. So fingers crossed. So in terms of academically, is it demanding? Yeah, because there are a lot of things to juggle. But in terms of the actual assignments that you're set, they are manageable, I think. As long as you come to training with some experience, which you will, you have been chosen to come to training, you will be able to do these things. So don't psych yourself out, is what I would say. Try and go into it just thinking, okay, how can I do my best here? That's probably my only piece of advice on that. I had a couple of questions on research. Firstly, how did you decide what to focus your research on? So 2 of my projects are linked to chronic pain, which was what my working age adult placement was in. So it happened that I was thinking, reflecting on my clinical work there during placement, and was curious about something, found a supervisor, talked it through, and it developed into something exciting. So I think I was quite lucky in that project, because there was a need for that project, so it kind of worked. For my service improvement project, there were lots of services that come to the course with ideas of projects that they want to do. I chose one related to my theory-driven research project to kind of reduce the amount of reading that I would need to do, and because it's an interest. But it was just very nice that actually lots of the reading that I'm going to do for one project will probably be reading that I need to do for 2. And that is probably a little bit of advice I would have, is try and choose some things that are linked, just because it does reduce your workload a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, reduces your workload. And then for my literature review, I went for something that I was really interested in. It's appearance related, body image kind of related. And I found a supervisor that wanted to do something similar. We talked through so many ideas. This one was a bit trickier because you have to find something that no one's done before, or you can do an updated version, but that's tough as well. You need to make sure that your question is going to result in not too many papers and not too few papers. So there's a lot of different things. So it took us a really long time to find the topic that we wanted to do, but I'm really excited about it. And I think my advice would be to do something that you're interested in, because ultimately then it feels a bit less daunting, or it does for me anyway, and a bit more exciting. And I think the other thing is our course puts quite a lot of focus and emphasis on the research making a novel and significant contribution to the clinical field. And that, for me, when I started, I was like, well, I'm never going to come up with that. I'm never going to be able to do that. But actually focus on finding something that you like, because your supervisors know the sorts of things that are needed. And if you come with a couple of ideas or areas of interest, you can very easily together work up an idea. There's so many different things you can do. And on my course, they very much want it to be led by the trainee coming up with the things. On some courses, you get given a list of topics. I'd choose something that you really want to do. So that's how I chose, basically, is I was really interested in all of these things, and it came out of curiosity, really. The next question is, how research heavy was the first year? So, for example, thesis, are research lectures or teaching aimed at all abilities, those sorts of things. So in year 1, there is a focus on research, but I don't remember thinking that it overtook the clinical aspects and all the other things. I think it's quite well balanced. In year 1, ideally, as I say, all of your 3 research projects need to be approved. So teaching has focused on the things that we need, like the basics of ethics applications, power analyses, thematic analysis, very basic things. It's covered, and it's been really helpful. And I've gone back to the lectures a few times when I've been doing things. So yeah, it has been really good. But I think it does assume a base level of knowledge with stats and things. We haven't had teaching on what a t-test is or anything like that. The teaching we've had is how to do a meta-analysis, for example. So it does assume a base level of knowledge, but I certainly don't feel like I have a lot of knowledge to do with that. Like, I just about know what a t-test is and what an ANOVA is. Do you know what I mean? But there is loads of support out there. And for one of my projects, we were having a few issues getting it approved in terms of the stats and the methodological stuff. So I spoke to another member of the research team who consulted on it, and it was just really helpful. So there is loads of support there. You know, I think it's difficult because when you're before the course starts, you're trying desperately to get onto the course and you just want to get on, and that's all your focus is, and you've put the course up on this pedestal and it's like, oh, they're amazing and I need to prove to them that I can do it. And when you're on the course, yeah, fine, they might be choosing whether you pass or not, but ultimately they need you to pass. Like, they want everyone to pass. So they will help you. They're there to help you. That is literally why they're there. So use them. Make sure you use them. So yeah, it's not necessarily been heavy. I think it's been quite well balanced. And it does assume a base level of knowledge, but I wouldn't bother reading up on that before you start the course. Like, I just start and see if you need it, and go to a textbook if you need it. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had to Google what a dependent variable is this year. It's actually embarrassing that I've had to do that so many times, but I just can't, it just doesn't stay in my head. Can't do it. So yeah, try not to worry too much about it. A couple of questions I had, how demanding was it out of working hours? And how have you maintained your work-life balance with getting married? And how have you managed to balance the DClin well with life? So honestly, it really depends. And I appreciate that you're asking me this question, and I can only give you my answer. And if you ask someone else in my cohort or on the course or different courses, they're likely to say different things, but this has been my experience. In terms of working outside of working hours, honestly, it really depends. At some times I did do some work on the weekends, but not loads, I would say. I think it's really important to stay boundaried, and I can't underestimate, particularly because we're talking about first year, I can't underestimate how hard it is and how much time it takes to find your feet and to feel confident starting the DClin and through your first year. Like, it takes time to work out what the fixed, strict rules are and where the flexibility is. And also it takes time to work out how much time you're going to need to put into things and what level you're happy to get it to. So in my undergrad, I would work and work and work tirelessly because you need to get first and it has to be this. On the DClin, you pass or you fail. Like, yeah, you can pass with minor or major corrections, but that's a pass. You just need to do the corrections. So it's pass fail. There's none of this first, there isn't any of that. So as long as you're passing, it's great. That's ideal. Of course, you want to pass without corrections because it's just easier workload wise. But if you pass with corrections, that you don't get a transcript at the end that said, oh, she only passed with corrections, so terrible clinical psychologist. It's not how it works. So yeah, I think that's really important. And I think in terms of first year, in the first term, we didn't really have that much work to do. They give you, in my course, they gave us time to find our feet and work out what we had to do and do all of the annoying things that you have to do, like mandatory training and all of that stuff. But I did spend some time reading on weekends occasionally. Like, I remember doing it maybe twice when I was starting placement and I had some stuff that I was interested in, but that is not a prerequisite and I haven't continued it, I have to say. In the second term, we did have more to do and I was anxious about getting it all done. So I did work a few more weekends, but I was really careful to only do a morning or an afternoon on one of those days and then try and do something else on those other days, like go and see friends or do something fun. But also I had plenty of days where I was like, don't want to see anyone, want to sit on my sofa, because that is really restful and relaxing and restorative for me. So yeah, and in the final term we had loads of other things to do, but I was wedding planning, so I did not really have that much time to do things on weekends for the DClin. So actually, like, yes, it's been stressful doing wedding stuff. It's helped me stay boundaried because I know that I have to get what I need to get done this week in the week because I don't have the time this weekend because I'm doing wedding stuff. So it has helped in lots of ways, as stressful as it's been. But the other thing I would say is, as you've probably noticed, I've been putting out way less content on Instagram and YouTube because it's been the thing that has had to give this year. I just didn't have the time to do it. And I feel now, I don't have any weddings to plan, which is super ideal because I actually don't want to do that ever again. It's been really stressful. But now I'm going to have a bit more time to be able to do YouTube and Instagram and put a bit more time into that. And I know what is expected of me on the DClin and I know how long it takes me to do things. And so, yeah, I feel a bit more confident that I'll be able to make some time. But ultimately, in terms of this balance in work and life, I think it relies, for me, it's relied on me being really organized and learning to find your feet, knowing what it takes, what time, how much time it takes you to do things, what's expected of you, you know, getting to a stage where you think, yeah, do you know what? I just need to pass and that's okay. So yeah, I think I've broadly managed to do it. I think it's been really important to schedule fun things. Like it's not been a good money year, but it's been a really fun year. So making sure that you are planning to do things that are fun on your weekends or evenings, because it's been a tonic to the workplace stress and all of the things that you need to think about. Just going and getting away from it is it's something that's really helped me. The other question I had that's sort of related to wellbeing, but sort of academic as well, is what is support like for trainees on the course? Do they really ensure that you don't fail? Well, none of the DClin courses want you to fail, okay, or drop out, because it looks really bad on them. Honestly, it depends which staff members you have contact with, like with any job, right? So some people are really flexible with the rules and some people aren't. And that inconsistency can be quite difficult to navigate and understand. But my advice would be to focus on you and only you. You know, everybody goes at a different pace. And I think trying your best is really important. Just try your best. And if you can't do any more, then you can't do any more. And I think my definition of best has changed. Like I said, in undergrad, my best would be working 12-hour days, just getting everything done, spending every waking minute on it, because I can't say I've done my best without spending every waking minute on it. Well, actually, no. Your best could just mean passing now. As long as I do my best to pass, that's all I need to do. I don't need to do my best to get 100%. So yeah, they really do ensure that you don't fail. You know, for one of my projects that had to be bounced back a few times with the research team, I now understand, like I completely understand why they did that, and I'm really happy. I think the project is in a really good place. But it had to be bounced back a few times, and I was really worried that, you know, one more time and I might end up failing, and that's really quite worrying. But there's a lot of support there to make sure you don't fail. But, you know, someone else on my course or another course might say different, so bear in mind this is just one perspective. So now we've got to the general section. Someone wanted me to go through the stuff that no one tells you before starting, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have based my answer to this on things that I hadn't considered before I started training. Like, I think I had quite a good idea of what training was going to be, and my expectations have generally been met. But one thing I would say is that the courses are not always the best organised. And what I mean by that is, if we put courses on a pedestal, like we often do when we're trying to apply to them, because, you know, they hold a lot of the power, you expect, I think I had expectations that I would come in and they would be like, cool, this is super organised and everything's perfect and you don't have to worry about anything. Nah. It's similar to a large NHS service, because effectively that's what it is. You know, some services are really efficient and good and communicative, and some really struggle with it. So I think that's the thing. The course, don't expect the course to be really organised, because they might not be. You know, they are actually just humans and they're trying their best as well, ultimately. So yeah. Secondly, corrections. So if you pass minor or major, you will have corrections to do. And corrections can sometimes mean that you have lots more work to do that you hadn't planned for. So like, you look at the list of deadlines, right, for the year, you just go, okay, right, that's all the stuff that I've got to do. But then I never factored in, well, what if I get corrections on that and corrections on that and corrections on that? It means that you have other deadlines that need to be put in. So for example, if you have corrections on your case report, something for systemic, and also one of your research projects and the extended essay, well, that is a lot of corrections to do. And they could all fall within 1 month that you need to get all of that done. So that's something just to be aware of. But also, the course are fairly flexible with deadlines in terms of, you know, if you communicate to them, actually, look, I've got corrections for all of these things. Here are the dates that they're all due in. I can't do all of that. Can we be a bit more flexible? They will do that, you know, as long as you give them a rationale. And I think in terms of a good thing, as I've said, actually, I was surprised that the assignments were doable. Like, I just had the expectation that they would be completely impossible. I'd never be able to do it, and I was definitely going to fail, and they would have kicked me off. That's not the case. They kind of staged the assessments and the assignments to your level of competence. So first year, like you're at first year level of competence, and second year they get a little bit harder and a little bit more involved, but you develop with that. So yeah, I think they really want you to pass, because it looks really bad on them. But those are my main things. This question was about how to keep organised. Any advice on how to keep organised? Things you learned from first year that you will do differently? I don't think I would necessarily do anything differently, actually. Like, I think everything that I've done, I've got to a really good place of organisation, so I'm going to continue doing these things. So firstly is my diary. Wow, I thought I lost it the other day, and I felt like my hand had gone missing. Like, it was absolutely terrifying because everything's in there, like everything is in there. And I know what you're saying, I should be digital, I know, and I do have it on digital as well, but I like having it all in one place. So, I have like a week to view, and I have daily tasks that I need to do. And it's about being realistic with what you can actually get done, and also not stressing out if you don't get them done. Just put them on the next day or the next time where you can schedule them in. The monthly view is really good. I like a diary with a monthly view because it can help show you what your month is looking like. If you've got loads of deadlines, then it's good to schedule something fun. Or if you've got loads of deadlines, make sure that you don't schedule anything extra because you aren't going to have time to do it. That sort of thing. I would say have a list of deadlines for that year and tick them off when you've done them. That's really helpful because it helps you see what your year is looking like on one page. You'd think that courses would give you that. They don't always because they put it in a different way, but that's what's been helpful for me. And then also having a list of all the requirements for placement and then tick them off when you've done them as well. I would say if you do clinical logs, do them as you go. Do not do them at the end. It's too stressful. And I would also say, this is a really big one, schedule time in for each assignment. So actually spend time planning your time. So you have your list of assignments and the deadlines. So what you can do is say, right, well, I know that week I've got that study day, so I can work on it there. But then the deadline's there, so I need to make sure that it's submitted by the day before or whatever. Just spend some time doing it. And I tended to do this on study days, so I could sit down and really go through what I needed to do and when, and be realistic about scheduling your time. I think at the start I just wanted to I put everything on the Monday and then let everything trickle through to the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if I didn't get them done. But now I'm just like, right, I'll do 2 things on the Monday, I'll do 2 things on the Tuesday, and that's been something that's really worked well for me. So definitely do that. If it helps. The next general item is scholarships for international students. So I am a UK resident, so I have not applied as an international student. So this information is taken from the Clearinghouse website, which I will put down in the description below. And I definitely suggest going there. This is what I found. So there are self-funding places available at these universities. They will appear on the screen. These are self-funded and they are very competitive. The whole process is really competitive, but I think for the self-funded places it's really competitive as well. There are NHS places, most of the places will be NHS funded, but to access one of those you need to have the right to work in the UK without restriction. So and there are lots of links on the Clearinghouse website to work out whether you have the right to do that. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think there are any scholarships for international students, I'm afraid. How would you have prepared for first year, knowing what you know now? Honestly, I wouldn't have done anything differently apart from relaxing a bit more before the course. I was actually talking to another trainee about this week, and we sort of both agreed that everyone tells you that you don't need to be perfect and you just need to pass, right? Literally everyone tells you that. And I remember thinking, thanks, but I'm actually going to be perfect because I need to be, and I've got to get first and I've got to do it. And that was very much still my opinion. And you have to go through the journey of being so busy to be, you're too busy to be perfect. What can you do? So to get to your destination of true acceptance, that a pass is all you need, you have to go through that journey, I think. So I wish I could have felt this way sooner in some ways, but also I do think it's a journey that a lot of us in first year certainly go through. And it did take some time. But now I really do think as long as I pass, I pass. I don't really care what the past looks like, and that's so alien. If you told me that a year ago, I would have been like, nah, I'll never get to that. The next one is any tips for first year. So I have 3, but lots of the things that I've already said are tips anyway. Firstly, know how you learn, or try out a few different ways. So do handwritten notes work? Do typed notes work? No notes. Some people sit and don't make any notes. What works for you? Is colouring while teaching's happening helpful? Is that helpful for you to remember and think about things? So definitely think about that. Number 2 is keep your focus on you. You are running your own race. against yourself to finish the DClin, and it's not really a race. You're just on a walk on a Sunday afternoon forever for 3 years. You are doing your own thing. Do not focus on anyone else, because everyone's at a different stage, not just for their clinical stuff, but their research stuff and their academic work. Everyone's at a different stage and they are all fine. So there's no point in comparing, don't be thinking, oh God, well, they've submitted their ethics and I haven't even started mine. Don't worry. As long as your supervisor's not worried, you don't need to be worried. Just have a talk with them. If you're running behind, then you need to put in a few more hours. It's all doable. And my third thing is do fun things and enjoy life. Schedule the fun things in. You need it as a tonic for the stress that can come with the DClin. The second to last question, what piece of advice could you offer to aspiring and incoming trainees? The one piece, honestly, would at the moment, and this does change depending on how I feel and what experiences I've had that day, but at the moment I think don't put the DClin on a pedestal. It's so much easier said than done. You just need to pass. It used to really upset me when I was pre-training and trainees would complain about the course, or they raised concerns about the course. I used to think you should be grateful just to be there and things like that. It's awful to admit that. But actually now I'm a trainee, I realise that actually raising concerns is not just about us. It's not really about us at all, because they're not going to make changes for us. They're going to make changes for the years coming. So it will impact future years more than it will us. Yeah. And I guess the other piece of advice is the DClin is a job, and only that. It's a job. You still need to have a life, and that's okay. And the last question, guys, well done for making it to the end. What have you enjoyed the most about first year of the DClin, and what have you enjoyed the least? And then I've also had what has been the best and most challenging aspects of your experience so far. So the things that I've enjoyed the least and found most challenging: being so busy and being super tired. That's been hard to adjust to. Secondly, annual leave feels limited, even though it isn't. My course are quite, they are quite prescriptive about how you use your leave. So they'll say, so normally you might have X amount of days for the year, you can choose where you take them. On our course, they're you have X amount of days, but you have to use Y amount of days in this placement, Z amount of days on this placement. So they're a bit more prescriptive with it. So it feels like there isn't that much. And the things that I've enjoyed the most and have been the best aspects of actually realizing that I can do this. I know that sounds so silly, but it has been a massive, I feel so much more comfortable now because I know that I can do this. It's just hard work. It's just a lot of hard work and trying and going for it, but I know that I can do it. Whereas a year ago, I did not think I could do it at all. I really didn't. I used to say, oh, I'm going to be a psychologist if I pass. And I might say it now as a bit of a joke, but I don't mean that now. I know that I'm going to pass eventually, somehow. Even if I have a fail, I will eventually pass. It will, because there's enough support there. And secondly is making some amazing friends. It's you can't, again, underestimate how important that is, that people are going through what you're going through. It's really helpful. So those are my reflections on the first year of training. If you have any questions or comments, please pop them down below and I will try and respond to everyone. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well so we can get inspiration for future videos. And there's going to be more coming up, hopefully this month if I can get, well, maybe not this month because we're in September, but maybe October. Wishing you absolutely all the best and good luck to every single person that's starting training or is on training. We can do this. We're going to be great, and good luck for your applications. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah.